Hey, welcome to the Strong Roots podcast. My name is Kristin Hill, and we are so excited that you're tuning in today. Our prayer is that you would move one step closer to Jesus through this series. So go ahead and check out this next episode. Hey, Strong Roots, we're in our marriage season, and I'm here with Rick and Satoko Hill. They're actually my mother and father-in-law, which is really exciting. And we live together. So I actually have an inside scoop on their marriage. So that's what makes me even more excited because I know it's really beautiful. So thank you. They're both not public speaker people. I think they are, but they don't like it. So it's a real treat to have them on. So I know your story, but I want them to know your story. So who pursued who and how did your relationship start?
Well, I was working as a computer programmer in Minnesota, and I wanted to spend all my time serving the Lord, so I looked for a place where I could have my full-time work. And I found the U.S. Center for World Mission in Pasadena, California, and I ended up taking a 3-week trip to volunteer there to see if I wanted to raise support and go on their staff. And so during that 3 weeks, they said, well, you have to take this 5-week intensive class in order to be a staff member. You might as well do that before you raise support. So I extended my trip for 8 weeks. And after about 3 days there, I'd been eating in the cafeteria and I'd met a lot of people and everybody's very nice, but I didn't know anybody. And I was getting lonely, missing Minnesota. But walking back from the cafeteria to the dorm, there were these big flowers on the bushes in January, and that's strange for a Minnesotan. And so I plucked off some flowers off this bush. They were camellias. I didn't know that. They were camellias, and I walked back into the dorm and stepped through the door into the hallway. And Satoko came bounding down the stairs. The women lived on the top floor and a man on the bottom floor. And she sees me, and she says, oh, did you pick those for me? And I go, yeah, I picked them just for you. and so that's how we met. And 5 weeks later, we were engaged. So yes. I don't know who pursued each other during that 5 weeks, but it was pretty intense.
Yeah. Did you ask her on a date after that?
That was early January. Middle January, I don't know when it was. I asked her on a date on Valentine's Day. It was our first date because I borrowed my roommate's car. I didn't have a car there. And we drove a few miles to a Huntington Library, which has a big botanical garden and a big mansion that's now a museum. So it was a nice place to go, and it was free. You know, going on staff at a mission agency, you know, you got to get good shape. So that was our first date on Valentine's Day, and it was 2 weeks after that we got engaged. So, but we knew each other pretty well by then. It had been 3 weeks after all of intense courting to get up to the first date. So it's, you know, that was a real date. Before that, we just spent a lot of time together.
So did you both just know? Did you just what made you know you wanted to get married?
Well, we were older. I was 29, she was 33. We'd been around a while, and God just brought her from Japan and me from Minnesota to meet in the middle. And it was pretty clear to us. And it was, how could it happen to us? It kind of surprised us because, you know, I was there for starting a 3-week trip, and I didn't see that I could propose to her right then. And we were growing closer, and I starting to realize that, I'm going to go back to Minnesota soon, and she'll be gone when I get back here. And it's like, how can this work out? Can I ask her to come to Minnesota and hang out in Minnesota while we court more to see if it's going to work out? You know, that wasn't going to work. And so finally, one day I just realized, she could finish the semester here while I'm raising support and then come out to Minnesota, and at the end of the summer we'll get married and then we'll move back here on staff. And I just figured out, it kind of came into my head once, that'll work.
Yeah.
And so I never remembered to ask her to marry me. I just said, this is how it's going to work, and it's going to work out.
What'd she say?
We won't be separate. Well, I never asked her, so she didn't have to say anything.
Well, he said, my dad doesn't like to, the wedding, he said, yeah,
They sail on weekends. They raced sailboats
Yeah.
every Saturday and Sunday. And so we couldn't get married on a Saturday.
So when did you get married?
Well, it had to be a Friday.
That's awesome.
So we had worked out all the problems so we could do it.
That's awesome. So obviously it's an international marriage.
yes.
So how did that come into play? How did that affect, just because, marriages have their own interesting conflicts, whatever, but did that add conflict to your relationship, and how did you resolve it?
Some people mention that the different ethnicity, nationality, there's a culture difference, won't work. The couple people advised me,
Yeah.
and I said,
Nice of them to advise us after we're engaged.
Yeah.
but we both, by then, we're Christians, and then we have a Christian value,
Yeah.
and both of us are raised up in a upper middle class, so financially it's kind of same background. So those two really helped us. And yes, there is some raising children, different culture, it was different. And we had a little discussion, disagreement. And so, but all in all, it's good.
Yeah.
The financial part, yeah, we were both raised in upper middle class households, but we were both the thrifty people in our households.
Yeah.
Very, very
That's
frugal,
true.
both of us. and so being around money, but being savers and
Yeah.
not spenders, it's a big leg up, because fights in marriages, they're either over finances or the children.
Yeah.
How do you raise the children? So we had at least one of those pretty much solved because of our backgrounds. And so our finances was rarely a big problem in our marriage.
Absolutely. So, how has Rick loved and led you to fulfill your call as a helpmate, Satoko?
Right before the wedding, I thought he should know everything, my past and everything. So I shared with him about the sins of my past. And his response was, I called Jesus my Lord, and he forgave you. So I do. I forgive you too. But it didn't end there. What I respect him very much is after the marriage, we had a fight, but he never brought it up and accusing me. You did this before, and I never heard that.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate, and I really do respect him. So forgive and done. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, what are the traits in your marriage that have been, so I hear forgiveness, but what are things that have brought you through the hard times?
Well, I guess it's trusting each other.
Yeah.
I think trust is super important to maintain trust, and I never ever want to do anything or say anything that would cause Satoko to lose trust in me. And
Yeah.
so, I gotta, be responsible, because if I say something and then don't follow through, she just doesn't trust my word, or if I would ever lie to her, or, those things
Yeah.
just would break the trust. And it's really hard to win back trust if you've broken it. But I think being able to trust each other is super important.
And I never worried about his unfaithfulness. And then I found out that Enneagram Type 5 people
Yeah.
may not be social, but they're super, super trustworthy and loyal. And that's exactly him.
That's true.
So I thought, this is the reason I don't
Yes.
have to worry.
Yes.
One thing I want her to be able to trust me, And I also need to trust her. And here's an example of a time when I didn't trust her. And so 4 or 5 years into our marriage, we became missionary senders. We left that mission agency and made our life about living on a simple income level or spending level to be able to save enough to be able to give as much as possible to spread the gospel throughout the whole world.
Yeah.
And so living as simply as possible, you can define that different ways. And so I started questioning everything she spent. You know, she'd come back from the grocery store and I'd say, how much that cost? How much that cost? Why did you buy that? We didn't need that. And like I said before, she's very frugal and very responsible. And yet I questioned her and made her feel guilty because, well, if you spend money there, we're not serving the Lord as well as we could. So I was just oppressive in the way I did that. And I wasn't trusting her to make wise decisions. And I needed to. And so the Lord corrected me in that through some hard times in the marriage where I was not being kind to her in the way I responded. So I needed to trust her, and things went a lot better once I did.
Yeah. What was the revelation, or what was the wake-up call for you?
The misery in our marriage. I made her miserable. She made me miserable. I guess it's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
So that was the wake up.
That's good.
You know, if you're not happy in your marriage, you got to look at yourself. You're doing something wrong.
That's so true. And that's the only place you can start, is looking at yourself. That's good. So what is a marriage that you respect, or what's a marriage that you really look up to?
Well, you know, there's no married couple that I know as well as you and John. After all, we've lived with you in the same house for 8 years. That's most of your marriage.
True.
And in that time, I've never heard either one of you complain or say anything negative about the other one. And that's just amazing, you know, because who would you want to go to? Who would John want to go to if he had a problem? He comes to me all the time with his problems, but he's never, ever had a problem with you. I don't believe that. But he's never come to me with a problem about you.
Right.
And so that's just amazing. And so I know that you guys have discussions and disagreements. I do hear that you've had them, but I don't hear any details. You keep them private. And in public, you only encourage each other or say positive things about each other. And that includes talking to us. And the reason that's so important is that if John were to complain to me about you, I'd remember that.
Right.
And if you guys repaired that issue and it was just something in the past now, I'd never know that.
Right.
And my image of you, my perception of you would always be colored by this complaint I'd heard. And I'd always be having those negative thoughts. So it's really important, I think, for married couples not to share complaints about their spouse with anyone, and particularly family, the people you're closest to, because you'll share that complaint, but you'll never share that it's gone. They've changed. It's all perfect now, you know. And so, better not to share the complaint in the first place.
Absolutely. So, are there any foundational, and this is not a question I'm planning on, this is going off the cuff, but any foundational things that have served you really well in marriage, like, or things you have lived by to make your marriage as solid as it is? 'Cause I know, like, I could list some, but you're like...
Thinking off the cuff here. I mean, putting God first, that's important. And always keeping each other in mind. We spend a lot of time together.
Yeah.
We've had the blessing that I've worked at home for virtually all our marriage. Before we had kids, we both worked at the same organization, this mission organization. And I've worked at home just about all of our marriage, and so we get lunch together.
Yeah.
You know, we eat lunch together every day besides dinner. Breakfast we never eat together, but
Yeah.
but we have time together through that, and being an Enneagram Type 5, I don't like to go out much to do various
Yeah.
activities, so I'm home with her. We get a lot of time together. I think that's important.
And I think something that I've noticed is you guys always read your Bibles. Like, you're always doing your devotion in the morning. They always kiss after they pray before a meal, which I think is just so cute. Like, I love that so much. But you guys are constantly serving one another. Like, I feel like you guys have really figured out a good balance in the house. Like, you're mowing the lawn, you're doing the trash, you serve in lots of ways. But then you're, like, doing the laundry, doing my laundry a lot of times. She helps with my laundry. You're cooking. I feel like you guys have found a good rhythm in serving one another. Has that always been, or was that a hard balance to find?
As already you know, that John was very, very sick
Mm-hmm.
when he was little because of the birth defect.
Yeah.
And 24/7, just never know what, detail, but he had a colostomy bag.
Mm-hmm.
And then 30-some years ago, colostomy bag was not really good, leaked all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to wash him and then change him, and then just constantly.
Yeah.
I was exhausted, and at the same time, hospital called us that if you don't pay this much, we may not be able to keep the child. And also, we were told we can't guarantee baby's life. Just stress and then exhaustion. And I went into deep depression. And he was very honest. He said, "Satoko, just sit down here." And I sat down in front of him. I was just, anyways. And then he said, I was so negative. I was so mad at God and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, "Satoko, you're not the girl I'm married to." And then he never lectured me, but just, but because he understand what's going on. And he never lectured me with like a Bible said like this and this, but he just said, "Hang in there." And then he took care of the finance. I took care of the baby. And but I thought, well, easy for you to say, just hang in there, taking care of the baby. But he also helped me when I changed the colostomy bag. That is extremely painful for the person who has the colostomy because the waste eats up the skin. And then on top of that, you have to put the bag on. And baby just moves a lot. And I can't put the bag correctly. So he came and then helped his legs or body as much as possible. But he himself saw the system coming out, and he passed out. And I thought, oh no. But by then, God knows the timing. Because of the severe pain, John passed out too. So he just so I just, okay, I'm done. But lots of ways. We did different way, but we did together. And also, I'm sorry, I may be a little bit switched, but the Bible said when you go trial, rejoice.
Yeah.
And because of that, it was really hard. I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
But because of that, I think our family became bounded together.
Yeah.
And we prayed together. And still now, 30-some years later, I feel that way. And then also when the marriage problem time came, Enoch became a marriage counselor. Because we seeked the marriage counselor, the professional people. But the fee was very expensive. As he mentioned, we are very thrifty.
Yeah.
And then he came up with the idea of, why don't we list up why you loved me or her? and then, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
When he suggested that, the steam was coming out from my ears. I said, it won't take a long time. I just flew. And then just in a few minutes, I'm done. That's what I thought. But at the end of it went all day long.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I thought I was really upset to him. But my love came back.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, if I get upset and left him, I missed this all.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, though, I recommend newlywed people. Just don't wait until you get fight. Just,
Yeah.
Do it from the start.
Yeah.
List or journal the life together.
Yeah.
You asked, what do we do? It's just kind of a habit we've grown into, is that, I get up before her and I go out eat breakfast, go out for a walk. And so by the time I come back, she's up. And we'll always hug then.
Yeah.
And I'll tell her, it's Wednesday today. I love you on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
I won't say, I'll love you forever. That's a promise that Enneagram Type 5 can't, you can't promise something you don't know that you can keep. So forever, that's a long time. So I'll say, I love you today.
Yeah.
But after enough days of hearing I love you today, every day, that's good. So it's Wednesdays. I'll love you on Wednesdays, at least, and Thursday. And so we do that, and when we get into bed every night, it's good night, I love you. And so at least twice a day, I'm telling her that I love her, and it's not a big deal, but it's just a habit we've grown into, and I think it's a good one.
Well, and when you come back from something too, I always hear you say, "I missed you." I feel like you always tell her that you missed her too,
yeah.
which I like. I'm always like, oh.
So I think it's important just to do those little things that are kind of, just a reminder that this is special, having a wife as nice as her.
Yeah.
I have to confess, though, that in Japan, the culture-wise, we don't hug each other. We don't say, I love you. Mm-hmm. And at the very beginning, it was hard for him because I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. And when you have international marriage, here I don't know, but that also recommend, touching, and then the word, I love you, is very, very important, I thought.
Well, I love that you're saying that, because I feel like in marriage, every marriage, whether it's that specifically, but you have to do things you don't want to do. That other people, that, he likes hugging, you hug him. Like, she likes to do something else, like, you're going to do that thing, and you can't have a good marriage unless you're willing to sacrifice your own preferences for the other person.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you guys keep your spiritual roots strong in marriage, or how have you?
Well, spiritual roots, I think, just the routine, whether it's marriage or not, you read your Bible, go to church, you put the sermons into practice. You know? I think that's the important things with marriage, singleness, anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. Satoko, do you have any thoughts on that?
I really do respect him because he lives the Word of God.
Yeah.
He was, his sister, at the wedding, his sister said, is he really Rick, my brother? He was not like that. Yeah. And then I thought, what do you mean? And I found out he was a very pessimistic person. Mm-hmm. And Bible is not the thing in his life. But once he came to know the Lord, once he decided to follow the Lord, he does. He really does, no matter what. And that's what I respect, and then I'm learning from him.
Yeah. Sounds like Jesus being at the center of your relationship has been the glue.
Yeah, for sure.
From the beginning of you meeting to now.
Yeah.
Everything you do, from giving money away to the way you serve and love each other, it all revolves around him.
Yeah, we'll go back. Your first question was, how did we meet? And I had quit a business career to go on staff and raise support to be a missionary or work at a mission agency. And if I had met somebody or married somebody before that as a businessman, well, it would be a lot harder to change my life over toward missions
Yeah.
and turn around completely on the financial side there and move across the country to do that. And so God brought us together. She was a missionary with Youth with a Mission at the time, and God brought us together that way and put us together to serve the Lord. So it started where God brought us both to serve the Lord, and then He could put us together.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets? Do you have anything, if you would go back, you'd do differently in your marriage?
I have no regrets about marrying her.
Yeah.
Things I'd do differently. Well, I wouldn't have been as oppressive with the finances, that one. And there's certainly a few other examples probably that I don't want to talk about, the things that I regret that I did in marriage.
Yeah.
But no regrets at all. I've loved marriage. It just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate because I can respect him.
Yeah.
He is an excellent father.
Yeah.
I mean, excellent father. And a really good husband and provider. I don't have to worry anything. Yeah, so. And today's secret, we are hoping we won't fight in front of the camera. But I'm so glad it's ending now.
You have never seen you guys fight.
Oh, you don't know.
Early in our marriage, we thought we were a pretty good couple, and so we'd sometimes talk with each other and say, boy, we got a good relationship. It's going so good, and we compare ourselves with other young couples, and we got it so good. And almost without fail, the next day or sometime in the next week, we'd have a big blowout fight.
Yep.
And that taught us that not to be overconfident.
Yes.
And we look back on that as sort of a jinx. We're afraid to talk about our marriage going good now. It might be going good, but we don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But we look back at that, and it's a reminder that you have to continually work at it.
Yes.
You can't take it for granted that things are going well. You need to continually work at it.
It's been hard work that's making it go well.
Yeah.
And hard work, not only learning to love each other, but putting God at the center of anything is work.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it was just like, he's there, now I can just go. Like, it's constantly putting him back at the center, and I feel like you guys have been very diligent in your marriage and your life and putting him center and just serving in all ways. So I love that.
Although we talked about divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Under the stress and just everything.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, but I'm so glad we didn't get divorced
Yeah,
and
you
stick
didn't give
together.
up.
No, we didn't give up. But it was a good thing. I mean, I recommend anybody, if you feel like I have to divorce, just reconsider. You never know. The treasure is waiting for you.
Yeah.
And then God will blessing your mess.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's so true.
I don't recall talking about divorce. not seriously. I mean, divorce is just
home.
not an option.
Yeah.
I left home once, and then because
That
I
I
was
remember.
so upset,
Yeah.
and then he didn't know. Before he came home from the exercise, I left, and then John realized I left, so he was, anyways, ended up. I went to my Sunday school classroom.
Yeah.
I was teaching at the previous church. And then Rick came with a sleeping bag in his
Yeah.
hand. He said, I understand you are going through, and I want you to come home, but I don't want to force you to come home.
Yeah.
And so if you want to sleep here, the sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Long story make short, I went home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, seems like we're doing well, but there are lots of
Yeah.
rainy days, shiny day, and just
Yeah. But you never gave up.
No.
And you kept what was important. And like the fights and the disagreements and the trust and all that, like, God wins.
Even I get upset to him, I never worry about his betrayal or anything. It's
Yeah.
strange, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So,
That's really cool.
and excuse me, but Fiddler on the Roof,
Yeah.
that Tabia asked his wife, "Do you love me?"
Mm-hmm.
And the wife said, "Do I love what?" She said, and don't you know I always clean your clothes? I always fix the meal for you. Don't you know I love you? Because, but that's a Japanese idea. And
Serving.
so, yes, serving. But I thought if I serve him well, he knows that I love him.
Yeah.
But here in this culture, you have to say I love you too. It's
Yeah.
important. The word is very important.
Yeah.
So,
For sure. Especially if that's the way they receive love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's knowing each other's love language. So that's really good. Do you like being served then? Or do you like...
I'm a little uncomfortable. Men serve me.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong in this country, but in Japan, and I'm old-fashioned. I grew up very old-fashioned. If my parents lived, they are over 100 years old. So it's very old-fashioned.
Mm-hmm.
But I was raised up with that way.
Yeah.
And I prefer to serve him than being served.
Yeah.
I show her my love by accepting her service for me.
Yes. And you serve, like I said, in different ways around the house and stuff and outside.
We
He does
have a good
really well.
division, and we're both very content with the division, and it's very traditional men's jobs and women's jobs, but that's
It
okay. That's who we are, and it works out really well for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for being vulnerable and
Thank
sharing
you.
just what you've learned and what you've gone through. And I really believe that there's people listening who really need to hear this. And how many years have you been married now?
39.
39 years. That's so cool. Thank you. And thank you for everyone listening. Our hope and prayer is that this strengthens your relationship in your marriage and also with God. And I cannot wait to catch you next time. Bye. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us on our other social media platforms. We don't want you to miss out on any future content. Thank you so much again, guys. I hope you have a great day. And I want you to know I am personally praying that your roots stay strong.